excited because I'm going live with Dr. Erica Marchand, and her handle is called Her Therapy Secrets. So we're both licensed psychologists that specialize in relationships and sexual health. And the title of the talk today is How Women Can Have a More Orgasmic Life. And so, women, come on, join us here. Present your questions, because two doctors here that specialize in women's sexual health and relationships are here at your service to answer some of your questions. And so I'm going to talk with her about a course that she has that is specifically helping women who struggle with orgasms. And so we're going to talk about that and some of the patterns she's noticed and what has held people back from achieving this, and she'll give away some of the tips that she has as well, I'm hoping. But really the topic is, although it's about how to have an orgasmic life, that really goes beyond the muscle spasm that is an orgasm. It's really about how you show up in your body, how you feel about your body. Do you know your body? Do you know your limits, your likes or dislikes, your pleasures or your pain? And are you allowed, do you allow yourself to really be vulnerable in your body, to let go, and to do that in ways in your life, as I talk about in my book, The Pleasure Is All Yours. The more that we're able to really be in our body, know our body, love our body in ways outside of the bedroom, and allow ourselves other types of pleasures, including playful pleasure, sensual pleasures, flow states, the more likely we're able to really have a satisfying, vibrant, erotic pleasures and sexual pleasures.
Hi.
So, hello, Erica.
Hi, Rachel. How are you?
Good, good. Nice to see you. I'm glad
So
that this
nice to
worked
see
out. Thank
you.
you so much for joining, because I think
Oh,
that
thanks for having
your
me.
your work and your course. I mean, I want to mainly, yes, I want to talk about the course, but also just hear about a little bit about you and what drew you and drew your heart and soul to come into this line of work. Because as I know, it's not for everybody, but
Right.
thank you for what you do.
Oh my gosh, and thank you for what you do. Since you reached out to me, I've looked at some of your content on pleasure, and it just resonates with my heart so much. So thank you for doing what you're doing too. Yeah. Well, I
Thank you.
got into the field. Yeah, of course. I got into the field of sex therapy in particular just through some of my own experiences, growing up, not getting a lot of info about sex and not really knowing how to talk about it, or like how to know what felt good, or if it was even okay to have sex, all that stuff. And so my interest in being a sex therapist really came out of my upbringing and wanting to kind of create space so that we could just talk about sex and have it be just a normal, healthy part of, you know, relationships. And so that's where I come from there. With pleasure in particular, though, it's been a journey for me. I'm someone who frequently works too hard, and it's always been that way for me. And
Mm.
so over the course of the last, I would say, especially 10 years, um, I've really started to reevaluate that approach to life, and to see, because like anyone else, right? I would get stressed, I would get burned out, I would feel like there's got to be a better way, you know?
Uh,
And so I've really tried to, do you relate to that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I always joke that I'm a recovering perfectionist, and
Yes,
and then
yes.
the whole book writing process really propelled me back into that sort of mode, and now I'm coming back out of
Mm,
it to having a lot more life balance, and so yeah,
yes.
it's a life practice to kind of come in and out of work
Yeah.
mode, but then having the balance and
Mhm.
our other pleasures in life.
Exactly. So same for me. So it's, my interest in the pleasure of sex, I think, has gone along with my journey toward just, cultivating more pleasure in my own life in particular. And so, a lot of my sex therapy work started out of thinking about what is healthy sex for people, what's healthy, what's risky, what do people want, what do people not want, and then from there kind of evolved to, so like, why do we have sex, what is sex about, and there's a lot of reasons, obviously, but one big one is pleasure. And
Mm-hmm.
so then I started to look more into the pleasure of sex, and orgasm in particular, as one of the great pleasures of it. And
Mm-hmm.
realized in my work and in my research and in my own experience that a lot of women don't have orgasms especially during partnered sex, and would
Hmm.
like to, but experience a lot of barriers to doing that, to making that happen, or to ensuring that it happens. And so I was super fascinated by that, because I can relate to that too very much. And so I was really fascinated by, like, why is that? What's holding us back? What could we do to be more, to bring more pleasure into sex, to allow ourselves permission for it? And so that was the genesis of this line of work, and of the course that you mentioned too.
Yeah, and I think that the word permission, it does seem like, given the way that females are socialized in a white
Mm-hmm.
supremacist patriarchal
Mm-hmm.
society, in which so much of women's
Yes,
bodies is about the male gaze, that
totally.
to
Yeah.
be able to turn it inward and really
Mm-hmm.
like love this vessel that we're in,
Mm-hmm.
know what, what it's into and not, and to give
Yeah.
permission, and permission to
Mm-hmm.
receive, permission to feel good in one's
Yes.
body. I mean, I think you and I are
Yes.
both on a mission to really help women with that, because they
Mm-hmm.
deserve it, and it's healing. It's so
Mm-hmm.
regenerative too.
My gosh, yes. So regenerative, yes. And when we talk about having sex for pleasure, whether that's like sex, what we might call casual sex, or whether that's sex with a partner, an orgasm helps so much with even just that experience of pleasure. I
Mhm.
mean, just the healing quality of sex and the healing quality of pleasure in and of itself, I feel like an orgasm just, amplifies that. So,
Yeah,
and I love
yeah.
what you said about turning it inward, the giving ourselves permission to focus on our own pleasure versus ourselves as an object of pleasure for somebody else, which is, I
Mhm.
think, how, or certainly how the implicit message that I grew up
Right.
receiving. And I think that a lot of women do. Yeah, yeah. So turning
Yeah.
that around is so key.
Right. And then that the
Yeah.
people feel guilty or feel selfish when they
Yeah.
assert, when they do know what they want and then assert
Hmm.
it. I mean, I think
Hmm.
it's hard. It can be hard a lot of times for women to first know what they want and then to
Yeah.
articulate it and speak
Yeah.
it, because of
Hmm.
the kind of gaslighting around
Hmm.
us really taking what we want and giving it to ourselves, and the way it's, we've been
Yeah.
manipulated to think that it means that we're greedy or selfish, or so
Right? To just
yeah,
want
yeah.
what we deserve, right?
It's like, nope, nope,
Yeah.
we're turning that over on its head and changing it, because it's a
Yeah.
better experience for everybody. And then
Hmm.
also, when we think about, I mean, part of why I love that you're really like focusing on orgasm is the way that it truly is healing. I mean, people can heal headaches. When I was working on my book,
Yeah.
and I had heard too, it can help like writer's block, or
I
just
love that.
other ways in which people feel like, stuck. So I mean, our bodies are
Yeah.
so healing if we only can really tap
Hmm.
into the ways that
Hmm.
it wants to heal us. And so, do you
Yeah.
feel like a lot of the people who sign up for your course, is there a way that they're just like either stuck in their head or stuck in a way of it's hard to give back to themselves and their bodies?
Hmm. Yeah, that's one of the biggest things that I hear, actually, that it's hard to, these are people for whom it's difficult to give back to themselves and to receive pleasure, and to not feel selfish or greedy if, for what they want. And, and, it's an interesting idea about feeling stuck. I'm glad you brought that up, because I know that there's certainly a release, right, that comes with orgasm, and there's certainly a
Mhm.
shift that comes with it. So like you said, yeah, your headache can go away, you can get rid of your cramps for a little while, it can put you to sleep, it can improve your mood, it can, it shifts the energy in our bodies, and it shifts the energy of what we're experiencing at that time, and can do so many things. So I think almost by definition, if we're having trouble having orgasms, something is stuck, And I can say for me, because I'm certainly a person who in the past had trouble having orgasms with a partner, especially. And so I think what was stuck for me was, um, I think it was that permission, honestly, permission and a sense of entitlement. Sorry about the noise. My cat is knocking things down. Uh, she's
No
very
problem.
entitled to what she wants to do.
We can model after her. Yeah, the diva that she
You
is.
know what? cats are great models for getting the pleasure that you want and doing what you want. I think.
Like, it's all about me.
Um,
Meow. Meow.
Meow, like I'm gonna do this thing even though I know you told me 100 times I shouldn't. We could all take a lesson from that. But yeah, I think what was stuck for me was this sense of maybe being able to fully embody my body and being able to open the door and let somebody else in to what I wanted and needed, and trust that it was going to be that was going to be okay. And so I think there was some fear there that was stuck for me. And so
Yeah.
I think
And I
that's a
bet that
common
sometimes people are,
experience.
yeah. And I bet
Hmm.
sometimes people are afraid of judgment too. Like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe I do know what might work to help me feel
Hmm.
my pleasures,
Hmm.
but maybe they're going to judge me. Or do you think that
Hmm.
that is something that gets in the way of and that's why it might be easier for
Yes.
people on their own when they masturbate
Yeah.
to achieve orgasm, whereas with somebody
Hmm.
else, they don't want the other person
Hmm.
maybe to judge them.
100%. Yeah.
Mm.
100%. I hear so often that women think it's whatever they need to have an orgasm is like weird, or it's too much, or they don't think it looks right or sounds right, or their partner is going to be, yeah, judgmental or weirded out or something like that. When in reality, the things that women need to have orgasms are pretty common and consistent across people. And so even when women are telling me like, oh, I feel like it takes me too long, it takes me this long, or, I need this specific kind of stimulation to have an orgasm. I just, that feels weird. I'm sure my partners, all their other partners could have orgasms more easily than me. There's this idea that each of us is so kind of unique. And I mean, we are unique, trust me. But the way that what we need to have an orgasm is so unique and so different than anybody else needs. And that's just not generally true. Like, I think we have this idea that what we might need to have an orgasm is this, like, unacceptably difficult
Yeah.
thing or
Like,
weird
we're too
thing.
complicated.
Too complicated. And in reality, we're just as complicated as the next woman. Like, there are so many commonalities in terms of what women need to have orgasms. I wish we could just talk about it out loud more often so we'd
Yeah.
realize that, oh, what I need is basically what she needs too.
And what are some of those needs? Like, I mean,
Hmm.
emotional safety, I would imagine, is one of them. And what else?
For
Knowing one's
sure.
body, or what else?
Yeah, yeah. Emotional safety, feeling comfortable and like you can trust the other person, knowing your body and what you want. And then if we get to some really physical specifics, consistent, direct clitoral stimulation for most women, not everyone, but for most women is really essential. And that's a big reason that in relationships with men, especially, if something that we're doing during sex doesn't build in direct consistent clitoral stimulation, which intercourse doesn't really do, then we're probably not going to be having an orgasm during sex with a partner. And so that's just one super specific thing.
Yeah.
The amount
Did
of
everybody
time,
catch that? Everybody catch that? Direct,
direct,
consistent clitoral
consistent
stimulation. Woo!
clitoral stimulation, yeah. Usually that is achieved with a mouth, a hand, a vibrator, generally not with a penis during intercourse, even though that's lovely for other things, other sensations.
Mm.
If that's how you like to have sex, not knocking it at all, but that's not the
Yeah.
type of stimulation that will bring most women an orgasm. And so
Okay.
I just want to normalize that for people that,
Yeah.
you're in the 90 something percent who don't have an orgasm just like that. Another thing that people think is super weird is, this is going to be a funny one. I don't know if people talk about this very often, but so there's when women's orgasms are depicted in films or, on screen, oftentimes they're depicted in this very kind of soft focus, kind of sensual way where there's this arched back and this beautiful expression on their face. And it's just so like it's kind of traditionally beautiful. And
Performative.
very performative, right? Like very different than how an actual orgasm looks. Um, so I have a Facebook group, and I hear from women in my Facebook group, and obviously also women in my private practice, questions about like, why do I need to? I feel like I need to like tense my legs up in order to have an orgasm, and that feels weird. Or I feel like I need to like thrust my hips in order to have an orgasm. That feels weird. I feel like I need to, or like my face looks crazy when I have an orgasm, and I'm afraid of my partner seeing that, or just like things that people need to do physically in order to have an orgasm that are totally normal. But because most of us don't see other women having orgasms except on screen, we just don't know that. And we can feel like whatever we need is like ugly or weird, or it's going to turn our partner off. And so I think just demystifying that part too can be super helpful. Like an orgasm, it's a very carnal thing. It's not necessarily a beautiful thing. Beautiful in the traditional
Yeah.
sense of like how we
Or
think of beautiful.
yeah, or thinking about the beauty in the animal aspect of it, the beauty of the carnal aspect
Exactly.
of it, right?
Yes.
Given that we're like
Yeah.
supposed to be like upright and look professional
Mm-hmm.
all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean
Right.
I'm all about like let's we are human animals,
We're
and there's sort of
animals.
amazing release and
Totally.
just like
Mm-hmm.
unleashing it, or even like
Mm-hmm.
there's that term like an ugly cry.
Uh-huh.
I don't think there's an ugly cry. If you're crying and you're getting that grief out, that is beautiful. And
Yeah.
so maybe we should just like
Yes.
however you are in your
Mm-hmm.
body and in your orgasm is,
Yeah.
whatever sounds
Mm-hmm.
you make, facial expressions. I would
Yeah.
I could see where, like, if people are so worried about how they look, then again, once again, they're in their head and not in the pleasures of their
Yeah.
body.
Totally. That's a really good point too. Any of this, like worrying about how we look or sound or what we're doing, falls into a category that sex therapists call spectatoring, which is like being a spectator of our experiences if we're outside of our bodies looking at ourselves versus in
Mm-hmm.
our bodies experiencing what we're experiencing. Spectatoring is usually something, just like you said, it gets you in your head and takes you out of the moment. And so if you're somebody who does that, and I think most of us do that from time to time,
Yeah.
it's good to just know that word and think, oh, I'm spectating right now. Can I refocus my attention inward, to what I'm experiencing, what I'm feeling, what feels good.
That's an excellent point. Thank you for
Mm-hmm.
bringing up and like giving a name to that.
Yeah.
That I think that, and it's like you
Mm-hmm.
said, sometimes it's bound to happen from time to time, but just as long as you
Sure.
kind of the practice of like coming back
Mm-hmm.
into the senses and the
Totally.
present moment reality.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And so
Exactly.
there are, I mean, there are different types of orgasms. I know, and I
Mm-hmm.
want to be conscious too that we just have maybe a handful of minutes. So if people do have
Mm-hmm.
questions, now's the time to ask. But then
Yeah.
what are the different types of orgasms just in general?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as far as clitoral, vaginal,
Mm-hmm.
combination,
Mm-hmm.
etc.
Oh yeah. I have the unpopular opinion on this one. I don't
Okay.
I don't classify them.
Okay.
Um yeah, and the reason I don't is because two reasons actually. So one reason is that there's a history, at least in my field in psychology, of classifying orgasms and like ranking them as some being better than others. Like if we go back to Freud, he said that if you had what he called a vaginal orgasm, which was an orgasm during intercourse just from vaginal stimulation, that was better or more mature than having a clitoral orgasm, which was from the clitoris. And
Yeah.
so
According
the
to some like old white dude too.
exactly, right? Thank you. So it has one of the reasons I don't classify them is because it has that history for me from my field, and I don't want any hint of that in how I talk about orgasm. So that's one reason. The other reason is that, just as I've learned more about vaginal and clitoral and just pelvic anatomy, it can be really hard to differentiate what's getting stimulated and what's bringing pleasure, right? Like the clitoris is so intimately kind of wrapped around the vaginal canal internally, and then
Yeah.
there's the G spot, and what's that there's still some debate about exactly what those cells are and what they're connected to and how they bring pleasure. And so I think it's important to know what kind of stimulation you like in order to have an orgasm. So if you know that you like, for example, like deep vaginal stimulation, by all means, get that and know that about yourself. If you know that you like external clitoral stimulation, by all means know that. But I just say an orgasm is an orgasm, and if it helps you to classify your own in terms of like the or like if you like your nipples being stimulated, that brings you to orgasm. By all means, great. So I think it's super helpful for individuals to know, what you like, what kind of stimulation you like and where, and how that results in orgasm for you. But yeah, from the outside, I'm not a fan of the classifications. I think
Yeah.
it brings
Like getting away from the labeling, and then, and I mean,
Mhm.
for sure, some
And
sort
the
of hierarchy.
hierarchy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And I
that's
think too,
that's just me.
I think it's good to, I mean, like what you were saying earlier, that, okay, the pattern does tend to show that like clitoral stimulation is really what like 90% of women need. And
Hmm.
then that's helpful for people to not feel like there's something wrong with me if
Totally.
and then, but also there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with being part of the 10% in which you have an orgasm from mainly vaginal
Totally.
stimulation either.
Absolutely.
It's sort of
Yeah,
like, all's
100%.
good. It's all good.
They're all good. They're all good. Yeah. What I would never want is I don't want anyone who needs external clitoral stimulation to ever feel bad, like they're somehow not doing it right, or like or that there's a way. I hear this narrative a lot, that there's a way somehow to like graduate to having vaginal orgasms. And now again, like if you want to have orgasms in different ways, by all means go for it. I think, diversify, right? But
Yep.
uh but I don't want the hierarchy, or like the idea that one's better than the other, or one's more advanced or something like that than the other. Yeah.
So it seems like the real like main point here is just know different pleasure erogenous zones in your body,
Mhm.
and they're all
Yes.
good. None are good or bad
All
or right
good.
or wrong, and
Mhm.
just keep being curious in
Mhm.
what you like that day or that week, and maybe it's always
Yeah.
evolving too. It maybe we don't have to feel
Sure.
stuck, and then to really know that
Right.
it's 100% your right
Mhm.
and really responsibility even to
Mhm.
tell the person, the partner, the lover that you're with, what you
Yeah.
want, and
Right.
that makes it a better experience for everybody involved. It's not selfish.
It
It
does.
makes it a game changer for everybody.
It's like it's sharing is caring, right? Like it
Yeah,
does, it makes the experience so much better for everyone. Then our partners don't have to guess what we want, right? And
right.
we don't have to do this emotional work of like holding on to what we want, if we could just say it or show them. So yeah,
It's so
yeah.
liberating.
mm, so liberating, so liberating.
Well,
Yeah.
I know we should wrap up, and you have another
Yeah,
meeting to get to. So
I do.
you're basically, your Instagram channel is in Her
Mm-hmm.
Therapy Secrets, tons of
Yes.
information there. So that's a place where people can
Yeah.
go and find out
Yeah.
more, right?
Oh, and they can also, yeah, definitely. My Instagram is my social media manager is one of my friends, and she does an amazing job, and is like, it's so good. Please, everyone, check it out. It's great. The other thing that people can do is I have a quiz called the Orgasm Spectrum Quiz. Yeah.
Yes,
And
yes.
so, so take the quiz. I can send you this as well. It's at ospectrumquiz.com/quiz. Takes about a minute, and it tells you where you fall on the orgasm spectrum, and what that means exactly. And so, if you want to know more about your orgasms, take the quiz. It's fun. It's one of the little things that I created that I'm really proud of. So yeah, check it
Yeah.
out.
Everybody
Yeah,
loves a quiz. I created a
yeah.
pleasure quiz on my website too, and I'm going to kind of keep
Yay.
tinkering with it and improving it. But I know
Uh-huh.
I took your quiz, loved it, so I'll make sure I'll
Awesome.
include that in
Thanks.
the
Yeah.
info. So,
Awesome. Thank you.
Erica, thank you so much. This is a really
Thank
important
you so
topic
much,
that is not
Rachel.
talked about enough. We have to
Not
really,
nearly enough.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you for shining a light on it. And thanks
yeah,
for having me.
likewise.